I'm Debbie Cook, and today I want to talk to you about how to obtain a federal ID number or an EIN, which is an employer identification number. So you may hear both those terms. They are one and the same. Federal ID number or an employer identification number, those both get obtained the same way and they function the same way. They are the same number per se. So if you hear federal ID number or an EIN, which is a common term, just remember that either one of those function the same way and they're obtained the same way. They are the same. Let's dive in. You have two different ways to get your federal ID number. You can do it by paper through a form called an SS4, or you can also just complete that form online through the IRS website. So today we're going to walk through, we're going to show you what that form looks like, because it's still a good idea to get that form, go through it, make sure you have all that information that it's wanting before you try to obtain it online, because the online version can time you out and then you can get stuck and you can't get back in until the next day possibly. So let's first go ahead and take a look at what the SS4 looks like. So as you can see here at the top, it wants to know what your legal name is going to be. Another little tidbit for you is if you're setting up a limited liability company, an LLC, through your state, you want to make sure that you do that first, because there's always the possibility that your name that you want is not available through your state office to obtain that LLC name. So go ahead and do that first, then bring that name here, and you want to have that name. If you have a DBA, you can add that in as well. There are some boxes on here that you won't use depending on what you're doing. Today we want to focus just a little bit more on small business, so we're not going to have an executor or an administrator because those go along a trust. Your mailing address, city, state, zip, name of responsible parties. So this is going to be the owner of the company. And so you're going to want to make sure whoever that owner is, if you're getting the EIN for someone else, that you have their social security number, or they could also have an identification number as well that they use besides that social security number. So have all that ready. Type of entity, you want to make sure that you know what type of entity you're going to be when you do this. So you could sole proprietor, partnership, corporation, those things already need to be decided. And we have a separate video where we've talked about the differences in all of those. So if you're not there yet, maybe you should go watch that first before you go and do this. You'll go on down. It's going to ask you why you're applying for this federal ID number. Did you start a new business? Maybe you hired employees. Maybe you just need to get that bank account set up for your new business. You're not going to have employees, but you need that bank account. So you're going to tell why it is that you're wanting this. Then they're going to want to know when you started. They want to know what type of business this is. Is it agriculture, household, so you have a household employee, or it's just a regular business? That's going to go in the other column. If you're going to have employees, it wants to know when you're going to start having those employees. Then it wants to know what type of business this is. So you want to have all of this in your mind before you start the online process. So let's switch over now to how we do this online. I will say we can't get too far in the online process because it starts wanting very specific information, but I want to at least show you how to get to the point. So you're gonna go to irs.gov, irs.gov, and then once you get there, you can do a couple different things. You can go to File, Businesses and Self-Employed. You can track through here. You've got your employee EIN button. Click on that, scroll down, and we already know at this point we want to apply for an EIN, so we're going to click on that. In here, it kind of gives you a little bit of what I just talked about, is like determine whether you even need one. So it talks a little bit about, are you eligible? You have to have a social security number or an ITIN number or an EIN to be able to get one, to be able to get a federal ID number. And once again, you have to know who the responsible party is. One little tidbit is whoever the responsible party is, that party, they can only get one per day, or if it's a sole proprietor, if you're setting up a sole proprietorship, that person can only have one federal ID number themselves. So that's just a small tidbit if you have trouble going through this or you get rejected at some point through it. That's usually the 2 reasons why. So then at that point, we're gonna click on Apply Online Now. Okay, then the next page, and once again, it's gonna walk you through what it is that you're doing. Here's some tidbits. You have to complete this application as it will not be saved, so you can't save it and come back. Once again, you wanna make sure you have all the information that you need. Your session expires in 15 minutes, so just be ready. If you have everything ready, you can get this EIN number in about 3 minutes, depending on your internet speed. So then we're gonna begin application. So the first thing it wants to know is, what are you? Are you sole proprietor, partnership, corp, LLC? So we're going to tell it that we're an LLC. At that point, it's going to then tell us, hey, you're an LLC, so you've done this at the state level. You've already filed your articles of organization with the state. And then it also says, okay, now we can have 2 or more members, we can have unlimited members, or it can just be 1 person. So it's telling you all about what your LLC can be to make sure that you've made the right selection. So we're going to continue. At this point is when it's asking how many members, because if you're an LLC owned by 1 member, then it's going to know that you're just a sole proprietor and it's going to be filed on your personal return. If you tell it that you're an LLC with 2 members, it's going to automatically designate you as a partnership. And then there's other things you can do to become an S Corp or a C Corp at that point. But once again, that's talked about in a separate video, talking just about entity selection. So we're going to tell it that we have 2 members. And then it wants to know what state we are in. So we'd scroll down, find our state, and continue. Here's another thing it's telling you, multi-member, you're going to be a partnership unless you file one of these 2 forms, an 8832 or 2553, to elect to be a S corporation or a C corporation. And continue on. Here's where it wants to know, why are we getting this EIN? Why are we doing this? So we started a new business, we have employees, banking purposes, change types of organizations. It's a whole nother segment of whether you're changing your type of entity or organization, whether you need a new federal ID number or not. It's a whole nother topic. So we're going to tell it that we started a new business. At this point is where it starts getting pretty specific in what it's wanting to know. So this is where I'm not going to go any further, because if I put in the wrong social or if I put in mine and I've already gotten one separately, it's going to stop us. So we'll stop at this point as far as going forward. But at this point, you put in your responsible party, then it's going to ask the name of your company, address. It's going to ask, once again, go down that SS4 form. It's going to ask what day the business started. It's going to ask one more time what state the business is in. Then at the end, you're going to click and say that this is all correct. It's going to have you verify the information. And then at that point, it's going to say, here's your EIN, and it's going to pop up with a button for you to click on to get your actual letter with your EIN, and it's going to give your tax filing information that you actually will be responsible for when your tax return is due. And if you've told it that you have employees, at that point it's going to tell you when your first federal employee forms are due as well. That is how you obtain an EIN, whether you want to do it on paper or whether you want to do it electronically through the IRS website. So thanks, have a great day, and make sure that you like and subscribe to our channel.